Hello and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the best RPGs that I've played in recent times. Apart from RPGs like Assassin's Creed or some of the well-known RPGs out there. Now, this is Japanese RPG and it's a very anime-styled RPG. Now, I'm talking about Tales of Arise. Yes. Now, I started with the settings screen because I want to talk about the different resolution and the frame rates that this game can be played on. But as you can see, the opening cutscene, this is not the opening cutscene, by the way. This is the in-game opening cutscene, you can say, because the game actually opens with a kind of introduction to this universe of Tales of Arise, which is appreciated and it's quite nice. From the story perspective, this is fantastic, and I'm going to get to that also in a bit. But as you can see in this in-game, you can say cutscene, and there are loads of them, by the way, that the quality of the production in terms of the character designs, in terms of the level design, in terms of the animation, it's stellar. I believe that this is one of the best looking RPGs that I have played in recent times, especially in the last 6 months or so. And that's coming from somebody who's a fan of Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed series. Now, this is a very different style of RPG because this is more like those Japanese RPGs that you would get to play. Now, just like every other video of mine, I would like to give you some information about Tales of Arise as well. So starting with the type of game that it is. Now, this is a full-on action role-playing game, an action RPG. Now, it's developed and published by Bandai Namco, and it has been released for the PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, meaning that it's actually a cross-gen game. Now, as far as the game goes, now this is the 17th, I believe, main entry in the Tales series, means that there are loads and loads of games in this particular Tales series. Now, it's more like I believe it's more like an anthology because every game is not connected. They have different storylines. Now, this game was originally planned to release in 2020. That was the plan initially, but I think it got delayed due to the pandemic, and they wanted to make sure that they check the game thoroughly before they release it, because hey, who wants a game with performance issues, right? I mean, hello, Cyberpunk 2077. So it's also one of the first games that had a worldwide launch, because generally what happens with these Japanese anime RPGs or Japanese RPGs is that it gets released in Japan first, and then they have like a worldwide release. But with this particular game, it had a simultaneous worldwide launch. Now, the game basically follows the story of this man in an iron mask and a woman. There are different factions in the game. I believe one are known as Dahnans and the other ones are known as Renans. So Dahna and Rena, it rhymes as well. So that's basically the game in terms of the storyline. As far as how it starts off, now it does go into different directions. So it's quite interesting, and you need to play this game to experience that story. Now, this game brought a lot of the same artists who have worked on some of the previous Tales games, especially Tales of Zestiria. I think I'm getting that name right. And it also had Tales of Berseria, which was kind of the last entry in the Tales series. Now, as far as the game's development goes, they have still used Unreal Engine 4. Now, still, I mean, it looks fantastic. If you ask me, my personal opinion about how this game looks, it looks phenomenal. In fact, I would go on to say that it looks so much better than Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise. I had a chance of playing Stranger of Paradise recently as well. And trust me when I say this, this game beats that game in every section possible in terms of the design, character animation, the storyline, every single way. I think this game was a comparatively superior product if I compare this to Final Fantasy, Stranger of Paradise, and therefore I can confidently say that this is one of the best RPGs that I've played, apart from those American RPGs. In terms of Jap RPGs, this is one of the finest I have played in recent times. Now, as far as how this game is set up, it performs like any other RPG out there. There are main quests, there are side quests, there are ways to upgrade your character in terms of what he can do, like a skill tree. There is also, a weapons tree, in the sense like a different kind of weapons that you can choose from. You can upgrade, you can even upgrade your armor. Your standard RPG affair. That's basically it. Now, as far as the plot goes, coming back to the plot, now this takes place in this setting, like I was talking about, Dahnans and Renans. So it's set in this universe where the story says that 3 centuries ago, the Renans, based on Rena's artificial moon, Lenegus, I guess I'm again getting that name right, invaded and conquered Dana. I'm just reading it out from wiki as I go along, and they subsequently enslave the population and divide the land into 5 isolated realms, each ruled by a lord, aka the boss that you're going to be fighting. So there are 5 different, you could say, isolated realms, and each of them, let me tell you, are beautifully designed. Beautifully. I mean, you can check out the detail in this particular realm as well. It's amazing. Now, I wouldn't exactly call it cel-shaded animation, but this looks a little cartoony. But they've done a fabulous job in terms of the quality of the design and animation itself. It is simply superb, and so much better than Stranger of Paradise, I feel. In fact, if I compare this to Stranger of Paradise almost feels like a last-gen game. Now, this particular game is a cross-gen title, meaning that when you download it, you can actually play it on the Xbox One and the Series X and S, PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. So it is one of those titles, which is a cross-gen game. And when you have cross-gen games, like, developers have to think about how the game's going to perform on consoles from 2 generations. So therefore, they have to tread carefully. I think they have found a fine balance. However, I have a few complaints when it comes to this game. And hopefully I'm going to get to that in a short bit. When it pops up on screen, I'm going to talk about it as well. Now, in terms of the presentation, the game skips between the gameplay and these, again, beautifully designed, 2D animations, you can say, cutscenes. And speaking of cutscenes, there are loads of cutscenes. So if you're a fan of cutscenes, you're going to love it. If you are a fan of only gameplay and you don't appreciate cutscenes, then hey, you're in for a bad time, because this game, it's filled with cutscenes. These 2D animated cutscenes and also 3D animated in-game footage, like in-game cutscenes. There are also pre-rendered cutscenes. In fact, it starts with one when you start the game initially. And apart from that, you also have dialogue interactions between the characters. Now, I wouldn't exactly call them cutscenes. Well, they can qualify as cutscenes, but the dialogue interactions as well, there are different types of dialogue interactions. One is a very comic book art style, and I'm going to show you that on screen as well. I'm going to talk about it when it finally pops up. So here the story starts with this girl. Her name is Shion, if I'm not wrong. The other character that you see on screen is Zephyr. And you also have our protagonist, who is simply known as Iron Mask, because he has an iron mask. Now, in case you all are wondering, how does that guy even get to see from that iron mask? Trust me, they have gone into the detail of how he can actually, see through that mask as well. I mean, that's the kind of detail that the developers have got. So they explain that. I mean, the character at least explains that he can see through the iron mask. And these are small things that you appreciate, because while I was playing the game, that question really popped in my mind. Hey, look at that mask. There is no opening there. How is he even able to see past it? That's exactly the question that he gets asked, and he answers that question. So it's things like this that you get to appreciate. These smaller details definitely lead to bigger impact, and the immersiveness factor obviously increases. Now, this game, look at how beautifully designed this game is. I mean, it's the characters are so beautiful. Especially the main characters, Shion and Iron Mask here, you immediately can identify with them, and you kind of can relate to them. And that's what you need in protagonists or the main protagonist of the game. You need to be invested in the characters to play these RPGs, because these RPGs sometimes they can demand a lot of patience from you in terms of leveling up, in terms of continuing through the story. And if you've got boring or dull characters, then obviously you're not going to be invested in those characters. There's no incentive, so to speak, to even progress through the game. Now, these guys do a fantastic job. And even in my very short time with the game, I felt like my character, the Iron Mask character, was evolving, was improving in the game. Now, that's what you need in these RPGs, because that's what these RPGs are about. They're about leveling up. They're about the evolution cycle. They're about making your character supremely powerful by the time you end the game. So you start off as somebody who's not that powerful, but then you finally end the game with somebody who's leveled up to such a level that even the final boss is no challenge for you. So that's what this game gives you, and it gives you that kind of a feeling in a very satisfactory way. And look at the quality of animation here. I mean, I am absolutely amazed with how good they are able to deliver the story, jumping between the different types of cutscenes, you know. So you see, she's got the touch of death, you can say. Anybody who touches her, poof, kaput, you're gone. And there's that mystery as to, you know, how she's got that power. And then the mystery about Iron Mask is that how on earth did he get an iron mask on his face? He has no memory of himself. The only memory that he has is of probably 1 year. And that's the mystery that you need to solve. And that's why, you know, the investment in the character, that's really there. You get invested. Now, I've skipped forward here a little bit just to show you the combat mechanism as well. And the combat is, I would say, a standard affair. I definitely enjoyed this more than Final Fantasy again. And I know I'm making a comparison to Final Fantasy again, because these are very recently released titles and both happen to be Japanese RPGs. So here you can read about some of the combat mechanism, and you can see how it actually performs or functions. I would advise that you read through them so that you get an idea as to how your character is going to perform and which buttons you need to press. So standard affair, the battle happens in real time, by the way. This is not a turn-based RPG game. So you are fighting real time, and you have your standard, you could say, melee attacks, and then you have combos, and then you have an ability to evade as well. So pretty standard affair there, but I think they have executed that really well. And you get involved in that combat. I did not feel like I was bored in any way, and I wanted to see how the character can actually improve upon his battle skills. That's what I wanted to find out. And here I'm just geared up with one rusted sword. Of course, as you progress in the game, you have the ability to change your weapons as well. So here you've got some combos as well. And I'm going to talk about that, you know, in the next scene. Yeah, here you see standard RPG affair, but they have executed this really, really well. There is a circle of, you could say, like a boundary that you will come across when you're playing this game in the combat mode. That means that, you know, while you're in the combat mode, you see that line there, you cannot escape that. So it's focused towards that area only. It's not like, you know, you can wander off and you can escape that action. So once you're engaged in the combat, That's it. You have to complete the combat. And here, there are combos as well. Now, the interesting bit about these combos is the fact that if you button mash, meaning that if you keep repeating the same combos, here it says diminishing returns in combos. So if you keep repeating the same combos, then the effectiveness of those attacks reduce. Isn't that interesting? So what the AI wants you to do is that they want you to come up with a variety when you're fighting these enemy characters. And I love that. I mean, that's such a nice way to you could say spice things up. So it's not like you can button mash your way through it. You have to have variety. And here I can clearly say variety is definitely the spice of life, because you've got to spice it up. You've got to have different combo moves. And here I was talking about that comic art styled conversation cutscenes. You have loads of them, by the way. You have an option of getting into it, or you can completely skip it as well, because that's the best part about it. You don't really need to see them. It's not a mandate. You can opt to see them. Now, what I mean is there's going to be an R1 if you're playing this on a PlayStation 5. So I was playing this on my PlayStation 5. And when you press that R1 button on your controller, that's when these comic art style cutscenes come up, these conversations between your characters. So it's an option. And in a game which is filled with cutscenes, you will appreciate that. So if you want to uncover more about these characters, a little bit of the backdrop of the story, if you want to deep dive into the relationships between these characters, then you can opt to see them. In fact, there are going to be save points across the game where you get to sit around a campfire and you can reminiscence these cutscenes as well. I mean, you can take a look at it from there as well if you have not caught up real time while playing the game. And that's what I appreciate. You can pick up the story at your own pace. Speaking of story, excellent, guys. I know that I've read some initial reviews where they spoke about the story being too fast-paced in places. I think it was absolutely fine. I think it was well-paced. It was not too fast, not too slow as well. It was just right. I mean, the progression of these characters, they are, I believe, fine. Now, speaking of reviews, the sites like IGN, Metacritic, PC Mag, all of them have favorably rated this game. Means that this game, when it came out, and it's been almost 7 months since it's come out, I think 7 months, yeah. So it had received high ratings, and I can understand why, because this game deserves those, high scores, 8, 4 out of 5, or 87 out of 100. They are all, I would say, unbiased ratings, and this is coming from somebody who loves the Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed series. Now, when you're used to playing a particular type of RPG, when you switch gears and when you move over to these Japanese RPGs, sometimes it can be overwhelming. But I did not feel that. Now, here, if you take a look at this scene, here you're again back to the in-game footage, like in-game cutscene, the dialogue, banter between these characters, etc. And it's very nice. It's seamless, you could say, the transition between cutscene and the gameplay. I quickly want to talk about the performance of the game as well. Now, since I'm playing this on the PlayStation 5, now on the PlayStation 5, this game basically runs at, there are two modes, a graphics mode and a performance mode. I'm going to start with the performance mode. The performance mode runs at 2880 into 2880 into 1620p. And it is running at a locked 60 FPS. Even during those graphically intense scenes, you can actually expect 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5. Now, as far as the graphics mode goes, this runs at 3840 into 2160. That's a 4K. It holds 60 FPS most of the times, but it dips to the mid 40s during those graphically intense scenes. Now, on the Series X as well, it performs very similar to, you could say, the PlayStation 5, same performance and graphics mode. So You get 4K in the graphics mode and you get a 1620p in the performance mode. Bottom line is that, and you get 60 FPS on the performance mode, and between the 40 to 50 FPS in the graphics mode on both the PlayStation 5 and on the Series X. Now, speaking of Series S, on the performance mode, this game runs at a solid 60 FPS, but at 1080p. And you'd be surprised as to how well this game performs on the Series S. Now, as far as the graphics mode goes, on the Series S, it runs at 1440p, meaning 2560 into 1440p, and it hovers between the 50 to 60 FPS. It can dip to 40 FPS as well. But again, hey, that's the Series S, and it runs beautifully on the Series S, given the fact that it's such a graphically intense game. Now, speaking of intensity, now the one thing that I didn't like about this game is that this game has some serious pop-up issues. Yes, all of a sudden, you will have enemy characters pop up right in front of you, and even objects like trees, rocks, things immediately, kind of pop up in front of your screen. So that is definitely an issue, and I can understand where they're coming from, because this is a cross-gen title, so they had to find a balance between that stability even on consoles like Xbox One and on the PlayStation 4. So pop-up issues are there, and I think it it is distracting. I wouldn't say that it's not. And sometimes you will find enemy characters popping up right in front of you, and the reason why it's so annoying is because this game gives you an option of not getting into combat as well. Because remember, once you engage in combat, you have to complete that. You have to finish those characters off. Those enemy characters off. So there's no way of aborting the combat. The only way you can is when you're passing by those enemies, just try to avoid them. That's one of the ways where you can avoid, combat. And if you have an enemy pop up right in front of you, that can be annoying. So please keep that in mind, that you have that problem in this game. Now, as far as the visual fidelity goes in the performance mode and in the you could say the graphics mode, I found a little bit of a difference there, and I'm going to talk about that in a short bit. But just take a look around. I'm going to pan the camera around to give you an opportunity to take a look at how beautiful this game looks. The level design of this game is absolutely stunning. It will not disappoint you in terms of how it looks. In fact, even how it plays. I was thoroughly satisfied with my time with this game. And as you can see, you see those enemy characters, which are there. You can evade them. You can simply run past them. But the pop-up issue, well, sometimes they pop up right in front of you when you're running, when you're sprinting, and you run into them. You kind of bump into them, and that is a problem. So the pop-up issues are definitely going to be distracting in a way, I would say. So try to avoid these enemies if you don't want to, get into that action. See, I can just run away from them. And speaking of running, you can run, you can sprint, you can walk, and the gameplay looks absolutely smooth, as you can see.
You sure won't hear me complaining.
Here, I'm just going to quickly, move over to, let's say, the frame rate mode, and I'm going to talk about, what I felt was wrong with the frame rate mode. I know a lot of people would appreciate the 60 FPS standard frame rate, but look at those shadows. There is some kind of an aliasing issue when it comes to the shadows, especially in the frame rate mode. I think you will experience a lot of jaggies in the frame rate mode, especially with foliage and especially with shadows. Shadows are a problem in the frame rate mode. And when you finally switch back to the graphics mode, it's fine. It looks sharp. Everything looks really sharp. So because this is a very narrative heavy, cutscene heavy game, I did not mind playing this on the graphics mode. In fact, I enjoy playing this on the graphics mode, but people who want to enjoy the 60 FPS, well, you can enjoy the 60 FPS as well, because hey, there are two modes to select from, and the best part is you can toggle between them without having to restart the game. So my experience with this game was excellent. I will highly recommend this game to all of you, and right now it's coming at almost 60% of the price from the time it was launched. So should you wait or should you buy this game now? I would say if you're a fan of Japanese RPGs, go ahead and get this game right now. It's totally worth the money. and you will not be disappointed. It's a much better title than Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy, in my personal opinion. But hey, that's just me, just a bloke who is blabbering online. So that's it for this video, folks. Do let me know what you feel about it. Hit a like and subscribe if you like the content, and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. With that said, it's a wrap for this one, and I'll see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.